Hello everyone, welcome to London, welcome to the East End. I'm Ellie, I'm going to show you around a little bit today. First things first guys, before we get started, could you just let me know, can you hear me? Can you see me is the most important thing. So just give me a little hi Ellie, we can hear you, we can see you, or a little thumbs up, a little smiley face, anything at all to let me know that everything is as it should be, because it's very, very windy here in London today. So I can't see anyone having said anything yet. Just check that my chat widget is on. So please guys, as soon as you can, let me know if everything is okay and if you can hear me. Just check. As the weather is pretty bad today. Okay. There we go. Now I can see you guys. Thank you, Mark. There we go. Thank you so much, and thank you, Leechen. I hope I pronounced that right. Yes, fantastic. Oh, can you hear that? So windy. So I'm tried to be very professional today. So I've got my little fluffy thing on my microphone that hopefully, is going to help me today. So it's very wet and windy. It's just a very typical sort of dreary London day. But thank you so much for joining me. So on Facebook, on YouTube, we're not going to start just yet. So we're going to have a few minutes just to sort of meet and greet, to get to know each other a little bit. And then we'll start sort of in about 8 minutes or so. Oh, wet and windy as well. Oh, hi again, Ross. It's really nice to see you again. Yeah, I can imagine that Edinburgh is probably even worse. It's not cold though, it's not cold at all. It's not too bad to be out. It's just not pleasant. It's grey and it's wet and windy. But hey ho, that is London. So guys, thank you for joining. We'll have a few minutes as well, just to give time if people are running a little bit late, or if you think, hey, I know who would like this, then get sharing the video. Maybe you've got friends and family who would like a little tour of London today. Please let me know as well where you're watching from. As you know, I'm very nosy. I like to know all about you. So where in the world are you today? Maybe you're having your breakfast. Maybe it's dinner time where you are. Maybe you're having a nice glass of wine, relaxing in the evening. So hopefully I'll keep you entertained for the next 45 minutes to an hour or so. So guys, it's very, very helpful as well for you to like the video, for you to share as well, for you to subscribe if you haven't already. I know a lot of you are on Facebook. If you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, I can see all your messages if you're using the chats in YouTube as well, and that's really, really helpful to us as well. So make sure you do that, and of course keep your comments coming. So welcome if it's the first time that you're doing one of these live streams with us, but probably we've got a few of you hardcore super fans that have been with us since the beginning, so you guys know how it goes. But please feel free to ask me any questions. So we'll do a few moments now for any comments and questions before we begin. Whatever you like to ask about me, about London, about what we're going to see. But as we go along, whatever takes your fancy, whatever pops into your mind, whatever you want to know, then ask away. I really like when you guys obviously ask your questions, because it just makes me feel that we're all together for the journey today. I'm really excited about the tour that I'm taking you on today, because this is the area where I spend most of my time in London, and that is because I live here. This is the East End, and I'm going to take you around a little bit of the East End, around my neighbourhood of Whitechapel. Now, it's not the prettiest neighbourhood. It's not the nicest place in London, but it's one of my favourites because it's one of the most interesting. David, afternoon from rainy South Wales as well. I think it's rainy, wet and windy pretty much all over the UK, but thank you for joining. A nice thing for you to do on a rainy day is to sit indoors, make me walk out in the rain, and hopefully I'll entertain you. So we're going to see as far down as we can get the Whitechapel Road, Whitechapel High Street, because it's not very long to walk, but there's so much on there to talk about. We'll try and do everything that we can, and whatever we don't have time for, we can do another time. So you might have caught my video last week. Last week we did a live stream where we started at the Tower of London, we went down underneath Tower Bridge, we went around the beautiful St Catherine's Docks, and then we ended up pretty much where we're going to finish this tour. So we ended up on the fringe of the East End. I told you a little bit about the East End, but I teased you a little bit, and I asked if you'd like to come and see for yourselves, and quite a few of you were quite enthusiastic. Yes, we want to see a bit more of the East End. So as promised, I'm just keeping my promise, and here I am ready to show you Whitechapel. And someone has decided that now is the perfect time to start drilling their walls, so hopefully they stop that a little bit. Otherwise I'll move. Now, we've called this tour the real Whitechapel, because when you come to London, say as a tourist, there is a reason why you might visit Whitechapel. A few of you might know why, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But that part of Whitechapel that you would visit as a tourist is not really Whitechapel, it's Spitalfields. We're not going to touch upon Spitalfields today. So the real Whitechapel is this area where I am, because this is where ordinary people live and work and shop. So that is what I'm going to show you today, but it's got a fantastic history, so I'm very, very excited to show you that as well. Other exciting news, we are slowly opening up our in-person tours in our different cities as well. Now, don't worry, that doesn't mean that we're going to stop doing any live streams, of course, because we've really enjoyed doing these live streams, and we're really enjoying kind of bringing these to you and connecting with you. So we're not going to stop doing that, of course, but we are slowly opening up. So we've already opened in Edinburgh, so Ross, you can get down to doing an in-person tour, and that went pretty well. I'm very excited to say that we are also opening up in London, I believe next weekend. We're just doing the weekends for now, but hopefully that will grow and grow. So we're starting with our famous free tour, which is the Royal City, and then we're doing an old city tour as well. So I'm really excited about that, because we haven't really done many in-person tours for a long time, so very excited. And guys, next time you come to London, we're waiting for you. We are ready, so let us know what you're most excited about seeing as well when you do come to London. So we're almost ready to begin as well. There's that trailer again. So guys, really appreciate your likes, your shares, your comments, of course. If you really want to help out as well, as you have been doing with these videos, you can leave us a little donation. You can leave us a little donation. 100% of these donations go to the guides, and this just helps us to continue doing what we love, to bring you these live streams and this online content, and also it helps us to reopen our physical locations as well all over Europe. And indeed the world. So you can do that on Facebook. In the comment section there is my direct PayPal link, so it's pretty easy. But also we've just unlocked a new feature on YouTube, so if you're watching on YouTube, we now have super chats, which is really exciting, and there's just in the comment box a little $sign, and it's just very easy. You just click on there, it's super easy, and that also helps us, that helps YouTube recognize, that we're creating really interesting content as well. So that kind of helps us go up in the rankings. So it really is super helpful. So I'm just going to check that we are ready to go in a moment. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Great. Let me know, guys, if you are still with me. Just trying to see you again. But otherwise, we'll get going in just a few moments. Okay. hope. So I've lost the chat again, so I'm just going to try, which is strange. Sorry guys. Okay, I think I have it again. So worst comes to the worst, I'm just going to use my phone to check your messages because I can't actually see them. Bear with me. Which is really strange, guys. Okay, I should be able to see it. Check widget. Okay. Come on. That's me and technology, guys. Okay. Well, unfortunately, your chats have all disappeared, which is really strange. But I will get going and just try to see them from my own phone instead. Okay, and then I'm not wasting any more time. And I'll do that in just a second. So I'm starting from here because I literally live the street behind here. Okay, so this is almost my street, and I'm just starting here because this is where I spend most of my mornings, and I do my little morning ritual, which is I come and walk my dog through here, and I stop off at the bakery, which is just behind me here. This is Rinkoff's bakery. It's a really famous bakery in the area. So it was founded in 1911 by Hyman Rinkoff. So it's still a family-owned business. I believe it's the third generation now that owns it. So Hyman Rinkoff came from the Ukraine and settled here in the East End. So it's a very traditional Jewish family bakery. This is where they actually make all of their pastries and breads, and they sell it from here as well, and they have their original store just around the corner. I come here because it's, in my opinion, the best coffee in the area, but they're famous for their challah bread, their babkas, of course, their bagels, and they invented this new thing called a crow dough, which is like a donut made with the pastry of a croissant and then different toppings. So it definitely is my favourite place to come. So I'm going to get a move in, and very strange. I'm sorry about the chats, guys, which is really strange that I can't see them because it's never happened before, but they literally just disappeared. So let's get moving, and like I say, what I can do is just have a look at them in a moment from my own right, here we go. So we're going on to the Whitechapel Road now. The rain at least has stopped, quite happy about that. And we are in the East End, as mentioned, and the East End is quite a large area, so it's mainly contained within the borough of Tower Hamlets. So this is actually the Mile End Road. So if we were to go all the way down here, we reach Mile End, Bow, Poplar, and then further north we come onto Hackney, but we're actually going to go this way, down the Whitechapel Road. So Tower Hamlets are sort of the hamlets of the areas that surround or that are near the Tower of London. It's a very large area in London. So they're made up of the previous boroughs of Bethnal Green, Poplar, and where we are now. This is Stepney Green, but then there are lots of districts. So we've got Whitechapel, we've got Bow, we've got Spitalfields, Limehouse, Aldgate, the area where we were the other day around the docks, lots and lots of areas. So it really is quite big. If you check out the video that we did the other day where we were around the London docks, we sort of talked about the people of the East End a little bit, and we talked about why this was such an impoverished area, of course, because we've got the development of the docks, especially in the Victorian era. So a lot of people are attracted to the East End for the possibilities of work, a lot of that, some skilled and some unskilled labour. Lots of waves of immigration that we'll talk about as well, but in particular in the Victorian era, this area, you know, was well known for its poverty, for its crime as well, violence. It was a very overcrowded area as well. So that's kind of its bad reputation. But also in the Victorian era, we've got a lot of philanthropists that are setting up and a lot of charitable organisations as well. People trying to help the poor of the East End. One of those was this man here, William Booth. You may have heard of him, you may not. You definitely heard of the organisation that he created. Just across from William is wife Catherine Booth. So Catherine's statue is a lot later, so this is from 2015 and William's is from the 70s, because it's only in recent years that we've seen statues of women kind of popping up in London, either to be with their husbands like this one, or quite rightly some statues of their own. But William and Catherine here created in the mid-19th century the Christian Mission. So their idea was to help the poor of the East End physically, but also spiritually. However, the Christian Mission became something that you will have heard of, the Salvation Army. And William Booth becomes the general of this now charitable organisation that still exists today. Was super, super popular in the US as well, in India, in Canada, pretty much all over the world. So it's still really big here in the UK. In London in particular, you see lots of things named after William Booth. And here is another one. This is the Tower Hamlets mission. So again, this was started in the mid-19th century, and today it still exists. The philanthropist that set this up was an heir to a brewery company, but he decided that was not for him, and instead he helps the poor of the East End, but also people who are alcohol and drug dependent, and that's still what this mission does today. So it's a Christian organisation, but that's still in operation today. And this is one of my favourite things on this road. Just one second, guys. I'm just going to check my own phone just to see if somebody has said something about the comments. Yeah, Chris was saying. So, yeah, that's not the issue, Chris. As I have swiped my screen where I should be able to see them, and in fact, I did see the comments before, but they, for some reason, mysteriously disappeared, which is really strange. I'll just try one more time. But it's so strange. So I really should be able to see them now. Try it one more time. No. Just very disappointing. I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, I'm going to give this one more go, guys. And no, it's really not working. I'm so sorry, guys. It's really annoying. I've tried everything. See what media screen, chat screen, video only screen. Yeah, like Chris says, it is a first, as it was working perfectly fine the other day, and it was working when I started, and it just suddenly stopped working. I'm going to try to delete all the chat screens and just try again. Chat widget. But it's not there. Alright guys, well, I'm really sorry about that, but if you get your questions in anyway, and I'm sure that Chris and everyone will just do their very best to answer your questions. But yeah, that is really sad, really annoying. So sorry about that. Just see what Chris says now. The media screen, there is a chat window. Then so Chris says, on the media screen there is a chat widget, but then we'll all see the chat. Yeah. That's kind of what that's what I was trying to do, Chris. But so it says it's applied, but then it just doesn't appear. Well, it does, but there's nothing in it. So yeah, super sorry about that, guys. Really don't know what that is about. Yeah, I can see what you mean, Chris, but it's just yeah, we'll solve it for later. So sorry about that, guys, but yeah, just get your questions in anyway, and the guys will do the best to answer them. I mean, I love to answer your questions and interact with you. I'm really annoyed about that, but yeah, that's technology, and it just happens sometimes, doesn't it? Especially with me, because I'm quite rubbish at it. But this is one of my favourite murals, so it's really great in London to see this type of mural, and it just gives us an idea of a few of the characters of the area, really famous characters as well. So here in the corner you've got George Bernard Shaw, Irish playwright, who was a member of the Fabian Society that used to meet here, Socialist Society. Here you've got the man himself, George Booth. You've in the corner there actually got Captain James Cook, who used to live over there. And Captain James Cook was a famous explorer, a navigator who explored all over the Pacific. He circumnavigated New Zealand. Oh my goodness, I can see Judith's comment switch from YouTube to here. Okay, hopefully that's a good thing and more comments come through. Oh my goodness, thank you, Judith. I hope I can see some more comments if you guys just leave me something now. Oh, I hope that has solved the issue. So Captain Cook also mapped out the east coast of Australia, but yeah, a few people know that he actually lived here in Whitechapel for a time. You've also got some of the dockers here. You've got Gandhi over here, who stayed in Whitechapel. You've got the Queen here with a big bell. We'll talk about that later. You've got Lenin, and that's an interesting story of the sort of role of London in the Russian Revolution. That's a whole tour on its own. You've got the Kray twins here, we'll talk about them. You've got Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man, here as well, we'll talk about him. And you've got various landmarks like the Gherkin, Whitechapel Gallery, which we're going to see. So off we go. Alejandro, greetings from Guatemala. Guys, I'm so happy that I can see the chat now. That's great. Oh my goodness. That was so annoying. So I hope all the chats come through. That's great. So I'm not seeing any from YouTube yet. Maybe I will soon. But guys, some very pretty buildings here in the East End as well. So I'm just going to show you one of my favourites, which is this one here. This is Trinity Green. And these are the Trinity Green Elms houses. So Elms houses were like social housing, either very cheap or free housing for people in need. And you can actually see over here the theme of these Elms houses. There's a little boat. It's fantastic detail as well, if you can see it a little bit. The little boats here on the side. Hello, Ross. Hi, Chris. Maybe these comments are like coming in really late. I hope not. But there's a little boat here, and this just tells us that these almshouses were for sailors, so either retired or destitute sailors and their families. People still live here today, so most of these are either privately owned or they are still council houses, but most of them are privately owned. See if you can see through the railings. So these were built in 1695, so really, really old. Initially there were 28 of them. At least 8 were destroyed during the Blitz in World War II. So the houses here, and then this was a chapel, and really, really beautiful. I've actually been inside one of these houses as well. They're super pretty on the inside. This is a grade 1 listed building, which is like the sort of maximum listing protection you can get in the UK. There is a rumour though, a legend in the East End, that this was designed by Christopher Wren, the great architect, designer of St Paul's Cathedral, none other, but that's probably not true. There's not a shred of evidence that Christopher Wren designed this, but it's one of those East End sort of folkloric tales that has become fact, really. But very, very pretty. I love these almshouses. How lucky to live in a little paradise like that. So Chris says that it's the chat on YouTube which isn't working. Okay, so if you're on YouTube, just get onto Facebook. Oh, that's a shame, because we're really excited about the YouTube today. But yeah, if you're on Facebook, then the chat is working. Hi, Ileana from Argentina. Bienvenida, bienvenida. So we're still on the Mile End Road here, and we're coming up to the Whitechapel Road just ahead. So as you can see, like I said, it's not the prettiest sort of area of London, although we're going to get a really great view in just a moment of the city of London as well. But there's just so much history here. I mean, we could explore so much of the East End, which hopefully we will do, as we sort of did the other day as well. There's lots and lots to see. The pub on the corner here, we'll pass in a moment. By the way, our pubs are open now, which is really, really great. Life is slowly coming back to normal. So the pub on the corner here is called the White Hart, and this is number 1 Mile End Road. So here is the end of the Mile End Road now. And they actually have their own beer. So there was a brewery. This used to be a microbrewery, and it's called, I think, 1 Mile End Road. It's quite delicious as well. Thank you, Bernard. You're doing well. Thanks for the encouragement. Oh my goodness. Oh, a little march there with a Palestinian flag, looks like. Looked like school, a bit of a school demonstration there. So here, do we recognise, as we cross the road, the wonderful view of the Gherkin? So just look how close we are to the City of London. So this is a great place to live, actually, because it's so well connected. You're in the City of London. You can walk, obviously, you can see it's not very far. So I've walked it many times. Sometimes I walk my dog down there just to get a coffee down at Aldgate. But if you cycle, like you see everyone cycling here, it would take you only about 10 minutes. Yeah, I know, Michaela, the YouTube chat is ghosting. The YouTube chat doesn't seem to be working Hi Ryan, just migrated from YouTube. Thank you for that. It just doesn't seem to be working for some reason. I don't know if it's YouTube itself, but it's probably me and something that I've done. But to be fair, I didn't see anything from the YouTube chat from the very beginning. So anyway, it's learning, isn't it? We'll sort it out for the next time. Yeah, Ross, Whitechapel Road and Old Kent Road on the Monopoly board. Absolutely, they're the cheapest properties on the Monopoly board as well. This cycle route is really helpful. This is part of the cycle superhighway. So this means that we can get into the city very quickly and very safely as well, because we don't have to share the road, you can see, with the cars. So I really like this cycle route. I like to cycle in London. Some people find it a little bit scary. You just have to get used to it, but it really is awesome. It saves you a lot of money and it's a great way to see the city. You don't want to be underground all the time. Oh, thank you, Lorraine, on YouTube super chat. So I'm really happy. That's really number one fan. Thank you, Lorraine. That's really very sweet. Really appreciate it, guys. Chris will tell you he has to fly over to help me with my tour. Okay, I'm reassured, Bernard, then not that bad. Jenny, thank you for your purple heart. Now this pub, a classic East End boozer, the Blind Beggar. This is one of the most famous pubs in London. It's one of the most famous pubs in the UK, and it's one of my favourite places to come and get a pint. It's awesome. It has a great beer garden as well. So you can see, founded in 1894, but the site of the Blind Beggar is much older. So there used to be an inn on here, and we're going back sort of the centuries, right? But then in the Victorian period, it's named the Blind Beggar. The Blind Beggar is a local East End legend. So it goes back to nobleman Henry de Montfort. When he had a child, well, he was actually wounded in battle. He was shot through the eye, so the story goes. And then he has a child with his wife, and the child is born blind. And this child becomes a beggar known as the Blind Beggar of Bethnal Green. So this is not a rags to riches story. It's a riches to rags story that was really popular in Tudor times, and there's a lot of places around this area named after the Blind Beggar. This is also one of the most haunted pubs in London, if you believe that sort of thing. But actually a murder did occur here in 1966, because this was also a haunt of the very famous Kray twins. So we'll just move up a little bit as I tell you about the Kray twins. Maybe have you ever heard of the Kray twins? They are a pair, well actually there was three of them. It's Ronnie, Reggie, who are the twins, and then there's Charlie, and their association is known as The Firm. So they are famous London gangsters. Interesting that also our royal family is known as The Firm as well. But this firm, you know, these guys, you might have seen the movie actually with Tom Hardy called Legend, where he plays both the Kray twins. But these guys were famous, okay? They hung out with celebrities. They were celebrities. And it was in the Blind Beggar. I always get the two mixed up, Ronald and Reggie, because also they are twins, so obviously they look alike. But it was Ronnie that walked in to the Blind Beggar in 1966, and he shot fellow gangster Georgie Cornell straight in the head, and obviously he died, and then he was sentenced to prison there, where he remained the rest of his life. But yeah, infamous gangster. So you can do a lot of gangster tours around the East End as well. 50s and 60s we're talking about with the Kray twins. Oh, thank you, Jenny, for a purple heart there. Jenny Stark from YouTube, thank you. So now we are coming to the Whitechapel Market. Now it's coming on to 5 o'clock now, right, guys? Well, I think sort of 4-ish. So the market is getting ready to close for the day, but I wanted to come at this time so it wasn't too busy, but so you could still have a look at the market. So we'll enjoy the market for a little while. Oh, I know Ronnie Kray from Charmless Man, Ryan. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so much that associated with the Krays. Lots of movies, series, books, all sorts of things. Now, this is what we call a real market, right? What do I mean by that? Oh, Ross, Ellie, who would you say is London's East End most famous people? I mean, we saw quite a few of them there on the Mural. So definitely you've got like William Booth, you've got James Cook, you've got the Kray twins, you've got a lot of the suffragettes as well, like the Pankhurst sisters operating from Bow in the East End as well. But I mean, you've got really one very famous character, which we'll come to in a moment, and as well as Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man, which we'll mention in a moment as well. So why do I say this is a real market? Because, you know, when you come to London, when you come as a tourist, when I do my tours, everyone says, oh, which market should we go to? We're going to Camden Market, we're going to Borough Market, we're going to Portobello Road, even Brick Lane. But these are not real markets, right, guys? I mean, they're fantastic, but they're not markets where you come to do your shopping. But this one is. So it's one of the, you know, only places in the East End that hasn't really been gentrified yet. So I come here to do some shopping as well. It's mainly for your fruit and veg, but, you know, you can really save some money here because it's quite cheap. It is cheaper than shopping in the supermarket if you come here. And you can bring your own bags and you don't have to use any plastic. These fantastic Indian sweet shops as well. So if you've got a sweet tooth, let's just go and have a little look. I don't have a super sweet tooth, so some of these are a bit too sweet for me, but you might like them. And I do like the samosas though. Come for the veggie samosas. A lot of places have really nice curries here, we'll see in a moment. But you're probably noticing that all of these places, we've got Indian sweet shops, we've got Asian products as well. So this is because we're in now the heart of the Bengali community in the East End. So some people call the area Little Bangladesh, Banglatown, and we can trace the Bengali community quite far back. So even if we go all the way back to the 17th century, we've got a very small community because that's when the East India Company first start trading in southern India. So we've got people coming back with them. We've got people working as domestic servants. We've got sailors, Bengali sailors in the 19th century were known as Lascars. But this community is quite marginalised when it comes quite isolated. It becomes quite destitute, you know, as sailors run out of work and people get thrown out from their domestic services. So, you know, it's quite a destitute community. Housing is provided, accommodation, but this really wasn't much better. Very cramped, people were malnourished, you know, just like pretty much everyone in the East End in the Victorian period especially. But the main influx of the Bengali community we're actually going to get quite recently, the 20th century, particularly after World War II. But we're going to come to that a little bit later when we get a little bit closer to the mosque. Here is the Royal London. Unfortunately, it's having a bit of work done. But basically the scaffolding is covering the original hospital, which had become derelict, and this is the modern hospital that's used today. So this is a teaching hospital. It's the main hospital in the area. Oh, thank you, Michaela, for your donation. Thank you so much. So this is one of the most important hospitals in London as well. That is a helipad as well. So the London Air Ambulance operates from this hospital, meaning it's very noisy around here. I mean, I live on the other side of the hospital, so it's super noisy with ambulance sirens and things like that. But when helicopters are coming, then it's even noisier. David says, I've been told to visit Brick Lane to enjoy a great curry, and you would be absolutely correct. So a lot of Bengalis, by the way, when we're saying Bengalis, we're mainly talking about East Bengal, which is modern day Bangladesh, but we'll come to that as well in a moment. But yeah, Brick Lane is a fantastic place for a curry. This is quite good, this road as well, because it's quite a lot cheaper and non-touristy. But definitely Brick Lane. Whenever you guys are in London, send me a message and I will tell you the best restaurants to come to get yourselves a curry. Brick Lane, not too far from here. This is an interesting monument. This is dedicated to Edward VII. And it is from the Jewish community of the East End, also a really, really important part of the history of the East End. So again, the Jewish community go back quite a way, but the main influx is going to come in the mid-19th century, mainly from Eastern Europe, because a lot of Jewish people are facing persecution there in Tsarist Russia. So they're coming from Ukraine, they're coming from Poland, they're coming from Hungary, and they're settling here in the East End. But a lot of these people that are coming in the mid-19th century from Eastern Europe are coming from rural areas. They're very working class, so they're kind of put to work in the textile industry as well. Very low pay, very overcrowded. They're working in, the equivalent of sort of sweatshops. So you've got lots of little symbols. So you've got a cherub here reading a book, the importance of education in the community. This is Lady Liberty. Another little cherub here who's got some cloth there in reference to the textile industry as well. There's a beautiful face of Edward VII, and you've got another one holding a little boat here just to remind us of how the people arrived. But there's conflict, when they arrive, also with other Jewish communities, because the Dutch Jews are here first, and they're a little bit more skilled, and by this point some of them are middle class. By this point most of them are speaking English, but you've got the Eastern Europeans who are speaking Yiddish, which is not the same, they don't even speak the same language. So there's a lot of clashes, and there's a lot of cultures mixing here as well. So there's a lot of racial tensions. Now, I mentioned Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man. The Elephant Man you might not associate with Whitechapel. You might not have even known that he has anything to do with Whitechapel, but he absolutely does. And in fact, when the Elephant Man, when Joseph comes down, he was born in Leicester, and after a period in the workhouse, he decides to enter himself into what was known as a freak show, which was a very cruel type of Victorian entertainment where people were basically put on display. But he was quite successful, so he comes down to London, and he comes and gets himself a manager, Tom Norman, and it's actually in this building right here that they had their exhibition known under the stage name of the Elephant Man. So you would come and you pay 2 pennies to come and see Joseph. But Joseph spent the last of his days actually just across the road in the Royal London Hospital, where he'd made friends with one of the doctors there, Frederick. And when he became ill, he was allowed to stay there for the rest of his life. And he died quite young, aged 27. So you might have seen the good film. I think it's David Lynch film, isn't it? With John Hurt, who plays Joseph Merrick. And a few years ago, I saw a really great play in the West End, which starred Bradley Cooper as Joseph Merrick, as the Elephant Man. When we went to see it, I thought, Bradley Cooper as the Elephant Man, like, how's that going to be? Is he even, a good actor for the stage? But actually, he really was. It was really, really good. So we're coming up here now, just coming off the main road a second, and we're just coming into our tube station, which is Whitechapel. And I'm just going to take you to a bit of a quieter area to show you something. Let me know, please, if the connection is okay around here, if you can all hear me well, as we're just crossing over the train lines now. So, you love Bradley Cooper, Rebecca. I mean, right, there was a moment in the play, so he didn't use any prosthetics or anything like that. He was just himself, and he did it so well that you actually believed that he had this deformity, even though he had nothing. But there was a moment where the very first opening thing is he's being examined, and he just takes off all of his clothes, and you could just hear every woman in the audience go, which I thought was quite funny, but it was a nice sight. As cruel, Judith says, the Elephant Man was probably better provided for in the freak show. Well, this is the thing, and he decided to do this himself because the thing you did not want to be in the Victorian period was in the workhouse, okay, which was basically a prison camp. He was in it for 7 years in Leicester, and he couldn't get a job because everyone was so frightened by his physical deformity, by his appearance, that it was really difficult for him to make a living. And he, you know, to his credit, he thought, how can I get out of this? What can I do? So he saw an advert for one of these things and he entered it. And then, you know, his show here in London was quite successful indeed. Now, we're in a bit of a quieter part of the street. This is Derwood Street, but it used to be known as Bucks Row. And if that name means nothing to you, I'm going to take you back to the year 1888. And it's 3:45 in the morning. People are making their way to work. So Charles Cross, a car man, basically a delivery guy, is coming down Bucks Row on his way to work. Behind him is Robert Paul, another car man, also on his way to work. He stops, and at the side of the road in the gutter is what he thinks is a tarpaulin, a sheet or something, so he just goes to get a closer look, but it's not. It's a woman. And he says to Robert, who's behind him, come and have a look at this, see if this lady's okay, because they don't know at this point, has she just had a few too many? Is there actually something wrong with her? Is she okay? So they're not too sure if she's alive or not. Her skin is quite warm, but her face is very cold. Her skirts have been pulled up to her knees. So the two men, they pull the skirts down and they say, right, well, we're a bit late for work, so we better get on the way, but we'll alert the next policeman that we see. So they do that, but it's now 3:50 and another policeman has already found the poor woman, who is in fact dead because her throat had been cut quite deeply, quite viciously. A doctor then arrives a little bit later, around 4 a.m, pronounces the woman dead, takes her to the mortuary, where it's then discovered that she has further incisions in her stomach and in her genital area. So this poor woman was Mary Ann Nichols, Polly Nichols, one of, some people say the first, but I'll say the second victim of Jack the Ripper. Exactly, Shannon. So this, you know, is what Whitechapel, unfortunately, really, is most famous for. It just can't escape it, okay? Whitechapel and the East End in general is still haunted by this, what now has become a myth. You know, it's so big because everyone around the world knows about the Whitechapel murders, knows about Jack the Ripper. You only have to say Whitechapel and that's the first thing that comes to mind, which is a shame in some ways because it has so much more to offer, but in others it's really important because it is also a story that highlights how violent life was here, how difficult, and just the conditions of Victorian London and Victorian East End. So the other murders happened a lot closer to Spitalfield, so we won't really mention the Ripper again. So this is the kind of furthest out. This is in fact sorry, wait for the siren to go by. This is the only one that's sort of in what I would call proper Whitechapel. The others are in around Spitalfields, and one of them is even in the city of London. But yeah, it gripped the nation really in the autumn of terror, which began the 31st of October 1888 and ended in November of the same year. So it's quite short but very intense. Yeah, Ryan says From Hell. So the movie I think you're referring to is where Johnny Depp plays, I think he plays the inspector, doesn't he? Yeah, that one is a bit fantastical, I'd say, the storyline. I think the storyline of From Hell was that Queen Victoria's grandson was the murderer. So yeah, that's not one of the the more sort of realistic ones, but it's a really good film. It really gives a good vibe of what it was like here, you know, back then. So we are getting now towards the East London Mosque, which you'll see in a moment. The graphic novel. Sorry, Ryan, I didn't actually know that there was one. Is it the same story? So you can see what I mean about the noise of the sirens here. Just wait for that to go by. It's probably pretty loud for you guys. So as I said, the same time that we're experiencing extreme poverty, we're also experiencing a lot of charitable organisations popping up into the 19th century. Like this one was the Foundation School. So it was initially a school for poor working class boys. The foundation was actually set up in the 17th century, though this building is from 1818. And it now belongs to the YMCA, not the Village People song, but the Young Men's Christian Association, I think it is. And that's the founder, George Williams. So I believe this now is like a training college that basically helps people train in skills of how to work in the community. Bernard says, I was here in 2016 for the Jack the Ripper night tour, one of the best tours I have enjoyed. Thank you so much. And Ross has also done the Jack the Ripper tour. So yeah, it is a really good tour. I really like to do it. When I do that tour, I like to focus a lot on the lives of the women involved, who super interesting, very resilient, you know, tough women of the East End, and I think their story is quite fascinating. So yeah, it's definitely a great tour to do, and it's a great way of experiencing the East End as well. Thanks, Ryan, that is the basis for the movie. So again, we've got William Booth. This belongs to the Salvation Army, and these are residences, so it's social housing, so basically people that are desperate for housing or homeless. They can apply for housing here through the local council. So we mentioned the Bengali community, that like the main influx of those being just after World War II. So most people are moving into Spitalfields, Brick Lane, which we mentioned before, setting up, you know, obviously the famous curry houses. Now the idea is mainly that they're going to come earn some money and then go home, basically. So they're coming to help with the efforts of, you know, rebuilding the country after the war, because a lot of people from Commonwealth countries were given a special citizenship, so it was really easy for them to move here to work. So a lot of people did that. And then there was another wave in the 70s and the 80s when the families of the men that had moved here to work were allowed to join their husbands, but that also coincides with the independence of Bangladesh then in 1971, I believe. So some people are escaping poverty, but they're also escaping, you know, the destruction, conflict, because of course we've got the separation of India then in 1947, and the territory that is West Bengal is under the dominion of Pakistan and eventually becomes the independent nation of Bangladesh. So we'll come into that when we get to one of our next stops. But here we have the East London Mosque, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful building. Beautiful tiles as well up here. It's absolutely massive. And it also has the London Muslim Centre right next to it, just to accommodate more people. It has around 7,000 worshippers, but obviously in Ramadan and Eid, which has just gone by, then it kind of gets even more packed, so they need quite a lot of space. You see the lovely minarets as well. This is the oldest mosque in London. Well, at least the fund of this mosque dates back to 1910, but this particular building was finished in 1985, so I really like it. It also has a really great archive as well, so lots of buildings in London have fantastic archives that are open to the public that you can visit. You just have to book an appointment, and that really gives you a great idea of what life was like in different areas of London. David says there's a really good book called The Five, which tells you the story of the victims. This is a fantastic book. I recommend it to everyone that comes on my tours, by Hallie Rubenhall. And it doesn't talk about the murders at all. It doesn't talk about the suspects at all. It just talks about the women, and it's fantastic. Oh, Lisa says, can you explain the petrol prices? I'm really the worst person to ask that, Lisa, because I don't drive. I know there's a lot of cars on the road, but most people that live in London don't drive. I mean, when I say I don't drive, I also can't drive. I know that's really weird if you guys are from the US where you all drive, but I've always lived in a city, and I don't really like cars and I don't really like driving, so I just never took to it. And the public transport system in the UK in general is so good that you don't actually need to drive. I've never felt, oh my God, I wish, I had a car right now. Also, as you can see, it's much more efficient to cycle, to walk, or to get the tube than to go on these roads. But all I know is that it's expensive, Lisa, but oh my goodness, I don't really know what to compare that to. I'm sorry. Ross said, did the East End get lots of investments and regeneration projects after the Olympics in 2012? Yes, it did. Not this area maybe in particular, although when we passed, I'm going to cross the road in a second, when we passed the tube station there as we were going to Bucks Row, you probably noticed there was a lot of works. So that's part of a new line that is going to connect basically the further out East London to the city and to central London. It's called the Elizabeth line. So there's a lot of kind of redevelopments done because of that as well. So there's a lot of new builds in this area. But yes, Stratford is where the Olympics were. So in Stratford you've got the Olympic Park and the Olympic Village. And yeah, they definitely tried to regenerate the area, I would say, which it still is. So it's becoming a bit more of a desirable place to live, because before the Olympics it was sort of very, very rough and ready, not really somewhere that you would really go for much, really. There wasn't really much going on there now, but now there's more and more. I'm just crossing the road here to show you. I'm just going to check the time as well, see how we're doing. Okay, we're almost finished, but I really want to show you this building here. So this is the Whitechapel Bell Foundry. See, established in 1570, so around 450 years this has been going. They made bells for all of London, but also for all over the world. So foundries were a very traditional industry in the East End as well, but this is definitely the most famous of those. One of their most famous bells is the Liberty Bell in Pennsylvania, which has a big crack on it because it got damaged on its journey over to the States. But guys, please have a guess. What do you think is the most famous bell to be created, to be cast here in the Whitechapel Bell Foundry? I'll give you a few moments to have a guess at that. You must know it. Probably the most famous bell in London. See if you know. Unfortunately, the Bell Foundry is now closed. It closed in 2017. The company still exists, but it had to move elsewhere. And unfortunately, the foundry was bought. So this building, apparently, I read recently, is going to be turned into a boutique hotel, which is a little bit sad. I think it would be much more interesting if they turned it into a museum where we could learn about the industry of the East End. The Queen visited here a few years ago as well, so it really is an institution. So I really hope they don't change much, at least of the outside of it. All right, guys, I don't know if you can guess then what bell was cast here. It was, of course, the Big Ben. So our famous Big Ben comes from Whitechapel Foundry, 13.5 tons. It's the largest bell that was ever cast in the foundry. So, I think it would be really interesting if it became a museum, but unfortunately that's not the case. Now I'm getting the comments. Yeah, fantastic. Maybe there was a bit of a lag there. Yeah, you're all right, Big Ben, absolutely. So I'm just going to finish in the park here because we're coming up to really, I think, the end of our time, but I just want to end in the park because I want to show you why Whitechapel is called Whitechapel, obviously, so we've got to end there. But I talked about racial tensions as well earlier, and that was certainly true in the Bengali community as well, especially in the 70s and 80s. You had sort of a wave of fascist movements, demonstrations, protests, attacks as well. Really, really nicely, the English Defence League and other fascist organisations. So really, sorry, I was just reading that. Look, it's Big Ben. Yeah, fantastic. So in 1978, there was one vicious attack in particular of a man called Altab Ali, who's a Bengali cloth maker. Unprovoked, and he was murdered in the area, and so this sort of sparked a lot of demonstrations and protests in this park here that became a bit of a rallying ground for demos. And then the park was tidied up, as you can see today, and it was renamed Altab Ali after the murdered Whitechapel resident. But this site was the site of St Mary's. St Mary's is the parish church, or was the parish church, from the 14th century. It's sort of had different, looks over the ages. It's not here anymore because it was demolished in 1952. It was struck by lightning. It had also been pretty badly damaged in the Blitz, so they tore it down. But before it was St Mary's, in 1250, apparently, there was a chapel here. And it was made from a Kentish sort of chalk rubble, so it had a white appearance, and apparently that's why the area is called Whitechapel. And when they tidied up and made the park, they actually dotted it around with these sort of curious little things, which are actually from the church and from excavations that they made in the area as well. So you can see, like, there's things like this, there are tombstones, graves over there as well, just to remind us of what the area used to be. And over there's a really nice monument, which is the Language Martyrs Monument, specifically the Bengali language. So as we mentioned, when West Bengal becomes part of Pakistan, they impose Urdu as the state language and repress the Bengali language and culture, and that leads to a lot of student protests and demonstrations. And in 1952, a number of students are shot dead by the police. So this is actually a replica of a monument in Dhaka as well, and every 21st of February they have Language Movement Day to commemorate this event. So I'm just going to come out of the park and then we're going to do our goodbyes, because I did promise that we were going to have a look at the Whitechapel Gallery. So just very quickly, that will be the last thing that we'll see. But I really hope that you've enjoyed. I'm sorry about the beginning where I couldn't get the chat to work. I'm sorry that it didn't work on YouTube. So hopefully we'll sort that out for next time. But otherwise, I hope that you have really enjoyed. Thank you so much for your super chats as well, for your donations on YouTube. That's really, really helpful. Obviously, that I really appreciate that personally, but also that really helps us, like I said, it helps us go up in the rankings on YouTube as well. And as I said, thank you, Shannon. Sheba dog. Thank you. I love Shebas. That's my favourite. Well, I love all dogs, obviously, but Sheba's a very special kind of dog indeed. Thank you so much for doing that, guys. Also, remember that if you are on Facebook, you can use my personal PayPal link as well. But you know, guys, that's completely up to you. It's just a donation if you can. If you can't, then a like and a share is fantastic as well. It's really been great to spend the afternoon with you. And finally, here we have the Whitechapel Gallery. This is one of my favourite galleries in London. I always recommend it to everybody because it often gets forgotten about, not by Londoners, all Londoners know it, but by tourists, because you want to go to the National Gallery, you want to go to the Tate, you want to go to the British Museum, but this is an institution in contemporary art. It was opened in 1901 to bring great art to the people of the East End, and indeed it did, because even Picasso's Guernica was exhibited here for its first and only visit to Britain in 1939. But also this is the sort of place that has changed art history, that has made careers of artists like David Hockney, for example, but also one of my favourite exhibitions to ever happen here in the 50s was This Is Tomorrow by Richard Hamilton, who's like the father of British pop art. And you might say that exhibition really was the beginning of pop art in this country. So it's had a lot of firsts, this gallery. Best thing about it, it's free. So I always recommend that you pay it a visit. And guys, I'm just going to switch around my camera to say bye. So guys, thank you so much for joining. Thanks for your lovely comments. Thank you for all your support. If you've got any more questions, quickly get them in. But yeah, Sandemans, they'll let you know in the comments where we're going next, because I can't say that I remember. I hope you enjoyed Chris's tour. It was really good earlier in New York, but definitely we'll have some really fantastic tours coming up for you. Let us know in the comments as well, where do you want to go next, right? What do you want to see in London next? Do you want to continue exploring the East End? Do you want to see something different? Where do you want me to go? You know, you guys can have a think as well. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Shannon. It was really nice to see you again. It's just started raining, same as what happened last week. It's just started raining as I finish, so I'm pretty happy about that. And I'll get home quickly before it starts pouring it down. But yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed my neighbourhood. Like I said, it's a bit rough and ready, rough around the edges, not the prettiest place, but it's definitely one of my favourite places. There's so much to see here, there's so much to learn, and there's so much to do. So that's it from me, folks. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Rebecca. Fantastic. So I will see you next time, folks. In the meantime, lots of love from me. Goodbye from London. Bye, guys.